Hello, and welcome to an impromptu episode of Jessica Recommends because I was just on a Zoom call and I'm like, hey, other than being like even paler than usual, I got makeup on, I'm wearing my cool Chernabog t-shirt here, and why not record a quick video? So let's talk about series that I love, but maybe fewer people have heard of. So I'm not going to be talking about the Raven Boys because Maggie Stiefvater love them, but I'm guessing you've heard of them. I'm not going to talk about things that have won a ton of major awards or anything like that, but just really quick, wanted to talk about a few series that I love that I wanted to highlight today. So, first things first, what am I reading right now? Well, I am about to finish reading Fridays with the Wizards by a young up and coming author named Jessica Day George to my kids. And when we are done with that, we will start on Saturdays at Sea. This is for reasons, which I will probably go into later in another video, but not now. To myself, I am reading The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan Henry. I am loving it. It is very adjacent to my interests. It's about World War II, but also about this woman who works in a bookshop, which I love, who discovers a new children's book that is based on stories she used to tell her little sister during the war that they made up entirely, but they're suddenly in this book by an American author, and I am obsessed with the mystery of what is happening in this book. I'm listening to the audiobook. It's read by Cynthia Erivo, from the Wicked movie, and loving it, loving her reading of it and stuff like that. I'm also reading a manuscript for something that I can't talk about right now, but if I decide to blurb it, I will definitely talk about it. So far, it's very good. Anyway, so that's what I'm reading. Now, let's dive in to what do I recommend as far as series that I think other people would love. Edgar and the Tattletale Heart. Jennifer Adams, who does the Baby Lit books that I don't shut up about. And the Baby Lit books to me are also a series, the board books. But these books that she did, this is also a Baby Lit production, illustrated by Ron Stuckey. And this one is inspired by, can you guess? Can you guess? Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. She did a whole little series of books about Edgar the Raven. I love the art style. I love the story and the way it's been adapted. Edgar is a little raven. He has a little sister named Lenore. The first book is just called like The Raven, I think, and is a reproduction of, or they're basically retellings of Edgar Allan Poe, some of his most famous stories for little kids. Freaking hilarious. So fun. Art is great. Really enjoyable. Really fun to read aloud. So your kids are never too young to learn who Edgar Allan Poe is. But Stickler is a new favorite. Stickler Loves the World by Lane Smith was the first one. Oh my gosh, I love Stickler so much. Stickler does love the world, and this book is so precious where he thinks he's met an alien and he is taking this alien around, showing him the world. And the one that is the alien is the one with the can on his head and not Stickler. I don't know what Stickler is, but he is slightly scary and so amazing. There is a Christmas book that is extremely precious. There is another book that I just saw that I think might be a board book, and I love Stickler so much. So Stickler is my new fave. Now, you maybe have heard of the Bruce books, but this is the latest one that I have, Bruce and the Legend of Soggy Hollow by Ryan T. Higgins. I absolutely love the Mother Bruce books. Mother Bruce and his little family of geese. I was told about these way back in the day when that first one had just come out by a bookseller, and she was not wrong. My kids, we've got all of these up until this one. I think there might be one or two after this one now, but Bruce is always a good time. My kids love it, even though they're older now, like too old for picture books. Never too old for picture books. But even though my kids are older, they're all teenagers, they still love to look through the Bruce books. They love the art, they love reading them. And so I always recommend Bruce. He's done several of the holidays now. This is like a Halloween one, there is a Christmas one. They are darling. So, moving up a little bit, we've got Sammy Keys for our middle grade readers. Sammy Keys and the Skeleton Man is this one by Wendelin Van Dranen. You might know her as, she also wrote the book Flipped, which I highly recommend, which is a standalone book. But her series about Sammy Keys, who is like a middle school age detective, and these are very these murder mysteries are, they're not murder mysteries, but these mysteries sort of remind me of, classic like Louise Fitzhugh's like Harriet the Spy type of books. They remind me of something I would have read when I was a kid. Sammy is super fun. She lives in the senior high rise with her grandma because her mom is in Hollywood trying to become a big star. And so she's not supposed to be there. So she's basically sneaking in and out of the senior high rise. There's a crotchety old lady next door from her grandma's condo who's always trying to catch her, like living there and stuff like that, and get her in trouble. And our favorite that we reread most Christmases is Sammy Keys and the Runaway Elf, which deals beautifully with grief and family, as well as having a hilarious mystery about a missing Pomeranian. So love Sammy Keys. Um, and I'm a huge Rosemary Sutcliffe fan. These are kind of breaking more into young adult, whatever. It was the first thing I grabbed right here. But Rosemary Sutcliffe was a British author who wrote, I don't know how many books, of fabulous historical fiction. This is The Silver Branch is the second book in her Roman Britain series. The first book is The Eagle of the Ninth, which was made into a movie starring Channing Tatum and Jamie Bell, which actually quite love this movie. It was very, very well done, really good adaptation of it. But it is about the Roman occupation of Britain, which, if you have met me, you know I am obsessed with. I am the person in our relationship who thinks about the Roman Empire like all day long. It's not my husband, and so anything to do with Rome, but she's also done, Rosemary Sutcliffe did a series about King Arthur and his knights. She did wonderful historical fiction that's still around and still really cool. Love her, especially love these. Um, yeah, check out Rosemary Sutcliffe if you love historical fiction. Hero's Guide to Saving Your Kingdom, Christopher Healy. I absolutely died over these books. It is a trilogy. It is, and I think I've talked about them before, probably if I was talking about fairy tales, but this is sort of like what happens after the fairy tales with the happily ever after when the princes, the different Prince Charmings, go out and do their own stuff. Like, what is Snow White's prince actually like? What is, Rapunzel's prince like? Like, how do they get along? And how are they, are they being overshadowed by the princesses and kind of want to do their own thing? And they have actual first names, people. It's not Charming. Their name is not Charming. And so it is just super funny, super parody of it's got great parody of fairy tales and stuff like that. Great read aloud, great audiobooks, fun for the whole family, but intended at middle grade readers. Really loved those. And you're over here thinking, but Jessica, when are you going to talk about Dinah and Jones? Don't worry, I'm getting there. But also, but first, I'd like to point out that before the Hunger Games, Suzanne Collins wrote a series called Gregor the Overlander, which is so dear to my heart. This came on the scene. I was working at a school at the time and had just been working at a bookstore, so I was kind of I was getting a lot of emails about kids' books and stuff like that. And I just kept hearing about, like, you've got to try this new book that's coming out, Gregor the Overlander, new author. They were not wrong. I have been so surprised that this series got overshadowed by the Hunger Games. I mean, I know the Hunger Games is a huge deal and they're great books, but I love this with all my heart and soul. They are super weird, and basically a kid who is dad has, they think, abandoned the family. Mom is working two jobs. They live in New York City, and Gregor, who is a young lad, I think of 12 at the time when the series starts, Gregor is supposed to take care of his little sister, Libby, and he's doing the laundry in the basement of their apartment complex one night with her in tow, and she crawls into a heating vent and disappears. And he crawls in after her, thinking he'll go in a few feet and pull her out, and they end up in what's called the Underland, this entire underground world, which has giant talking rats, giant talking cockroaches, people flying on huge golden bats, and this whole race of people who are living underneath us and very aware of it. And it is so good. It's a 4 or 5 book series. Series is complete. Absolutely loved it, especially this first one. Such a standout. When am I going to talk about Diana Wynne Jones? I'm going to talk about her right now, and I'm going to talk about her with two of her series. Um, Cart and Quitter, the Dale Mark Quartet. I don't hear a lot about these anymore. Mine are sort of a mixed bag. This was the new cover when I started getting into them, but just to show you how old this was, this book cost $6.95. I liked you to find me a middle grade paperback book that costs $6.95 in this day and age. And the last two I have in the quartet are actually an older printing. They didn't have the new covers yet, but I needed them, so they hadn't been released yet. So I've got the older covers on my other two. But the Dale Mark Quartet is uh, a 4 book series about sort of like an alternate Wales, like an alternate world to Wales. And it starts out like in kind of the medieval period and stuff like that. And the last book is actually set in the future and involves time travel, though, because you know Diana Wynne Jones loved time travel. She's got time travel in a ton of her books. So Cart and Quitter, which is about a family of minstrels traveling around doing their traveling show. There's always a good mystery in them. There is some light, preteen appropriate romance and things like that. I love this series, and I do not hear much about it anymore, but I think it's so good. The series is Cart and Quitter, Drowned Ammit, The Spellcoats, and The Crown of Dalemark. And I actually loved, I think, The Spellcoats the best. And The Spellcoats is sort of a flashback. It goes even further back and is very almost like Bronze Age or like just post-Roman occupation type of era, and was real cool. So, Charmed Life, her Crestomancy books, which I know a lot of people, and you always see the four together in an omnibus: Charmed Life, Lives of Christopher Chant, Witch Week, and the Magicians of Caprona. You always sort of hear about, but just to show you how old this copy is, this is a Bullseye book. I don't even know if that press still exists anymore, but I quite like this cover. Charmed Life was kind of my favorite until I read The Pinho Egg. She went on past these first 4 books talking about Crestomancy, the wizard who has multiple lives, and so he is in charge of living sort of between all the different alternate worlds and keeping track of them. And this book, where little Cat Chant finds out that one day he could be the next Crestomancy, except all of his lives have been going real fast. He has died multiple times, and they're not sure why. Well, someone's sure why. But anyway, I love the Crestomancy books. This one was my favorite, but I really like the later ones she did as well. Like after Magicians of Caprona, I love the Pinho Egg and a couple of the others, House of Many Ways and stuff. She also, by the way, if you like Howl's Moving Castle or you've only seen the movie or something like that, there are sequels to Howl's Moving Castle. There is Conrad's Fate. There is Castle in the Air. Like there are some sequels with those characters popping up here and there. Like they're a new set of characters, but then like Sophie and Howl will come in at the end and some things like that. It's super fun. So she wrote some great series too. You know, I love her. And of course, I'm going to talk about it. All right. Now, interesting series that sort of crosses the bridge between middle grade and young adult. This is more on the young adult side, but this is Megan Whalen Turner's Queen's Thief series. The first book is called The Thief. It was originally The Thief of Atolia. And yes, my book is signed, you betcha. Um, I love these books so much. First book is called The Thief, and there's the Thief of Atolia, the Queen of Atolia, the King of Atolia. It is a world sort of based on Greece and the area around there. They have some technology like guns, but they also wear tunics and sandals type of thing. It's very much its own world. And I love this series so much. I love Jen Eugenides, that's usually the main character in these books, who is the royal thief. He is the official thief for the kingdom. Um, and that is because there is a specific god. The gods interact with people. He'll give like a gift to his god, and the god will protect him. And it is very unusual and really cool. It feels like Greek mythology, and yet at the same time, it feels like a really fun, just like a fun modern adventure, like modern written adventure. It's really good. And she's walking a really great line between the first book, The Thief, and even the second book could really be middle grade. Then as these get up, they get into sort of lower young adult. The characters are a little bit older. But they're dealing with the same level of peril and stuff. So it's not like she dumbed down the first couple or anything like that, but they're just a little bit older. Some of them are married, some things like that. So you follow Jen and these other characters for years and years, which is a really fun thing to do. There are 5 books, I think, now in it, and I could do a million more if she would do them. I would read a million more. So, life as we knew it. Susan Beth Pfeffer just passed away, and she has been a phenomenal writer since the beginning of forever. I read some of her middle grade books when I was a wee child, and then a few years ago, she wrote this, and it became her most popular book, and there is a whole series behind it. And I feel like when this came out, a lot of people knew about it and stuff, and then I feel like it's kind of faded, and it shouldn't, because it's extremely scary in a very realistic way. It is what happens when there is sort of like an apocalyptic type of event, not a nuclear war, but definitely something that changes the world and changes like life as we knew it. And it is so good and so intense, especially this first one. Like, how are they going to survive this? Like, you become really obsessed with how much food do people have? Like, how much food do we have stored? Like, what if the power went out permanently in our house? What would we do? And things like that. So good. I love the characters, and really don't want to spoil anything, but um Life as We Knew It and the sequels, there's 4 books now, and they sort of this book and then the second book are 2 different sets of characters, and then the next couple she brings them back together into one community, and it's really great. So, and also I just want to highlight that because she just passed away. She was not very old. It was quite sad. So, highly recommend. All right. Teen and breaking into young adult. What the heck? I read them as a teen. You can too. Jack the Bodiless by Julian May. This series changed my life. I was obsessed with it. I read this book over and over. This is my original paperback from way back in the day. I wonder how much this cost. I'm obsessed with this now because of how much the oh, 5.99. 5.99 for this paperback. Do you know how much this sucker would cost today? Like 5.99 for like a 465 page paperback. A steal, my friends. And she did a whole trilogy about Jack the Bodiless. And this was the second one. This is my science fiction book club special selection of Diamond Mask. She did a trilogy about specifically Jack and his family, and they are people with high telepathic powers interacting in a galaxy that is all connected. There are alien races. Earth is a part of this huge galactic federation. If you love Star Trek, you will absolutely go for the Jack the Bodiless books. There is a 2-book, like a duology that comes before this about Jack's great uncle who claims to have once saved the world from aliens using his keychain, this little red marble that he carries on his keychain. And so there's even like a prequel duology explaining how Uncle Rogie once saved the world with his magical keychain. And then there is this series. The series all sort of overlap and stuff because the many-colored land, the first part of it takes place kind of at the same time as this. Basically, someone finds a time portal into the Pleistocene epoch on Earth. And so they start sending people back there. First, they're scientists, but it's a one-way portal. So people go back to study this weird wormhole and don't know what they're going to find there. And then they start sending uh, people who have basically committed crimes, like serious criminals that they don't know what to do with, start getting sent back to this land. And they just sort of imagine them, they send them with supplies and stuff, and they just sort of imagine them just sort of building their own society. Like some people go back because they just want to live unbothered, and they go back with a bunch of sheep and a sheepdog and, the supplies so they can build themselves a little cottage and stuff like that. And that is not what's happening back there. There are already people there, and they are not human beings. And it is very interesting. It is a 4-book series, super good, and it overlaps with the Jack the Bodiless books. There are characters from Jack the Bodiless that end up in the many-colored land back in the Pleistocene epoch, and it is super cool, and I love them to bits. So all of Julian May's books about the Remillard family is their name, and their many associates and stuff are just fantastic. I don't hear about them anymore. When they came out, when like Jack the Bodiless and stuff came out, like people who loved sci-fi, everyone was talking about it and stuff like that. I think some of these, either all of them or some of them at least, may be out of print at this point, but they are so worth finding. They are so good. This is great science fiction. I don't understand why it's still not a big deal. Um, What Feasts at Night? This is the Sworn Soldier series. Like, first of all, look at how great this is. This is the second one. They are technically novellas, quite short, really fun. Basically, sort of a fantasy murder mystery by T. Kingfisher. The first book was What Moves the Dead, and they do have very gross covers if you look carefully, but they are relevant to the plot. But What Moves the Dead, What Feasts at Night is very interesting in regards to gender. The main character is a sworn soldier. The main character was, born a woman, but every family in this world, which is sort of Victorian British, but not really, but everyone has to cough up a soldier basically for their country's army. And so she's not a girl anymore. She's a sworn soldier. She lives life as a soldier. There are pronouns specific to what you are if you are a soldier, because you are essentially not a gender. There are specific ways to address clergy people, like are considered a separate gender and stuff like that. It was fascinating. It was the way it played with language and stuff, as well as being basically solving a mystery that's based on a fairy tale, like it, or a nursery rhyme. Like, is this nursery rhyme true? Does this actually happen to people, or is this just a weird, creepy old nursery rhyme? It was really cool, really fun in the second one. And that is the second one. And my babies. Lore Olympus. I know I've probably talked about this before, and I know they are kind of a big deal, but I still had to talk about Lore Olympus. If you, like me, love Greek mythology, this is absolutely the coolest thing in the world. This is a comic book style, very new take on the myth of Hades and Persephone. It's got deep dives into like all this stuff about Persephone that I never knew beyond her just living with Hades for 6 months out of the year. It goes deep into like what she used to be and like what the different names of the gods and goddesses were before. Like, remember way back in the day, originally your name was this and you were worshipped this way. But it's also like Olympus is basically modern. They wear modern clothes and they have cell phones and they have like, um, dating apps and things like that on their cell phones. But then they also just sort of jump back and forth through time. They might go to Earth for a while and have the event that you've heard of in Greek mythology where this or that happened. And, fall of Troy or whatever and stuff like that. And then they will suddenly be in this other world in Olympus wearing leather jackets and talking on cell phones. And so I super love this series. It's very much for adult. It deals with some hard themes. If you know anything about Greek mythology, that's not a surprise. There's some swearing, some things like that. But if you love comics or if you love Greek mythology and you are okay with some swearing and some very adult themes, you should read Lore Olympus by Rachel Smythe. Love these books. Anyway, that is what we're going to talk about today. And I will leave you with that. Everyone go out and read a good book. And that's what Jessica recommends. Please like and subscribe and tell your friends.